Well, Venerable, I wanted to ask you about how Tara's helped you. And like when people say about praying to Tara, what does that mean?
I know.
How do you pray?
It's a good point. I think we should just try and explain quickly what Buddha is. Don't you think we should remind ourselves what we think Buddha is? We've got many weird ideas, I think. So first of all, we've got to remember that the word Buddha refers to the actual, unmanifest, all-knowing, all-pervasive, all-compassionate consciousness. This is the Buddha's fundamental point we've got to get in our heads, that there are trillions of minds or consciousnesses, and they've all got the potential to become completely perfected. It's really, Lama Zopa said, it's a bit like the way they talk in Christians. There's one Buddha, there's one vast, all-knowing, and we become that one. So that's like pervades the universe. I know when I was a little girl, I loved the idea that God was everywhere. I try and think God is in the light switch. God is in the margin of my course notes. I couldn't work it out. But if you can imagine non-physical consciousness, no longer encumbered by any delusions, pervades the universe, how can something not physical be not pervading everywhere? It's completely clear, sees everything that exists, sees all the minds of all beings, has infinite compassion. The Buddha's point is, which is so amazing, is that that's the potential of every living being. That's what we can all become. So millions of beings have become those. But when you become it, and Miffy becomes it, and Annie becomes one, we all become the same Buddha. But then that's fine for Buddha. He's happy, she's happy. But what about poor old peanuts like you and me who need help? So Buddhas then manifest in bodies to help. And there's two kinds of bodies. The one that's depicted like this one behind me, that's the form that you and I can see, regular ones. That's Shakyamuni Buddha, So that's the form that Buddha took, right? So then there's another body, which is depicted in the Vajrayana, which is all these hundreds of different bodies, all the Buddhas, and they've got subtle light bodies. We regular people can't see those, but the great bodhisattva yogis can, because their minds are so advanced. And that's known as the enjoyment body. This other one is known as the emanation body. So there's these two bodies in which the Buddhas manifest. So in Tantra, in Vajrayana, got these hundreds of different Buddhas, and they're all basically it's Buddhist psychology. They're all just different manifestations of either qualities we want to cultivate, like love and compassion and wisdom, or delusions we want to transform. I mean, Tantra is the most marvelous psychology. Everything's possible to be fixed. Nothing's left out. You can use anything, the greatest yogis. So all these different Buddhas, so you've got Shakyamuni Buddha, you've got a little family tree, you've got Shakyamuni Buddha, you've got Buddha, actual Buddha, that's known as the Dharmakaya, the one we said was not visible. Then under that you've got the Rupakaya, form body. Then under that you've got two, Nimanakaya and Sambhogakaya, emanation body and enjoyment body. So here's an emanation body, and then you got Vajradhara or Dorji Chung, and he's in the bodhisattva aspect, which is the one they're all dressed up and gorgeous, not looking like monks, all dressed up and gorgeous with earrings, looking beautiful. They're all kind of gorgeous and young, and it's meant to make us happy. It's a whole different level in Vajrayana. So I remember when I first went to Kopan, I kept hearing about, reading in the publishing room when I was typing up all the prayers, I kept reading about Vajradhara, I kept reading about Dorji Chung, and I liked him. And I said to Lama, who's Dorji Chung? And Lama, being in his wonderful, inimitable way, he just said, he's the biggest Buddha, dear. And I was so excited I liked the biggest Buddha. So that's the tantric aspect, just like Buddha dressed up looking like gorgeous. And then under him, you've got the 5 Buddha families. And each of them is a manifestation of the different delusions you can transform. So Amitabha is a transformation of attachment energy. And then all the Buddhas under Amitabha. And then you've got all the Buddhas under Akshobhya, a transformation of anger. They're like that. It's really brilliant psychology if you really understand it, get past all the mystical nonsense. So then, under all those are all the other thousands of Buddhas. It's a really elaborate map of all these beings, and they're all representations of states of mind. It's so brilliant, So Tara, so another way of putting it, there are 3 essential qualities that an enlightened being needs, or that an enlightened being possesses. And that's compassion, the wish to benefit others, the wisdom to know how, and the power to do so. So compassion is Chenrezig, as we know, compassionate-eyed one. It's a very sweet, peaceful aspect. This male Buddha, they're all looking gorgeous. They're all about 16 years old. They all should make you very happy, Sitting on lotuses, and their light bodies are made of light, and they're all holding different things. And it's a visual language. It's quite precise. Then that's Chenrezig is compassion. Then you've got Manjushri, this dude, with a sword above his head with fire on the tip, and he cuts through ignorance. Manju, gentle voice. He's the Buddha of wisdom. And now you've got power, or the ability to do it. And Tara is a really good example of that. She's a girl. She's got a green light body. Green is like energy. And the female one is often depicted in Vajrayana as quick, no nonsense, cut through the obstacles, get things done, and courage. And she's the one of courage. Her name, Dolma, means liberator, literally liberator. Dolma in Tibetan, Tara in Sanskrit. And she's liberator from the fears of samsara. What that means is liberated from all the dramas, all the attachment, and the misery, and the anxiety, and the nonsense, because she's courage and action and confidence and success and cut through things. And she's courageous. She'll say and do what needs to be done. She's not worried about what people think about her, She's great. So we all need that. So for me, that's just so delicious, saying those words. That's the benefit of Tara, So what you do is you either visualize Tara outside you when you do the meditations. So it's like a mirror image of what you can become. She's showing us what we can become, You buy into the meaning of Tara. And then you at some point absorb her into her and you become Tara. The Lamas talk about this type of practice in Tantra as bringing the end result into the present. It's like the best of positive thinking you could ever imagine, It's just brilliant. It's just really good psychology. Get past all the business of, mystical stuff and so understand the psychology of it. Because the point is, in Buddhism, if there's a single piece of advice that doesn't help you work on your mind, it's a load of rubbish. Chuck it out. It has to be psychology. It's just not how we think of psychology, that's all. So Tara's great. We all need to become Tara, And sometimes she's depicted as, she's kind of no nonsense, but she's sometimes depicted, her eyes are slightly wide open, and she you wouldn't cross Tara. You'd be careful because she's no nonsense, But she's full of love and compassion and only wants to help. And we need to identify with that energy. This is the whole point of all these practices. That's why when you do the Lam Rim, I have to swear here. Oh no, I can't swear. I'm not allowed to swear anymore. I won't swear. I'll just say a polite, naughty word. It's having your hands in your own caca. As one of my therapist friends said, it's having your hands in your own, I say it's like tasting your own vomit. And it's hard work. You get a bit exhausted. But here in Tantra, you lift yourself up and you identify with your potential. It's very powerful psychologically. And the point is with Lama Yeshe was amazing. He somehow I think Lama was born a hippie. He just knew how to talk to Western people, to modern people, to hippie people. He was incredible. And he would teach Tantra from day one because he said we all understood. He felt that we were so deluded with so much attachment. We could understand the concept of transforming energy, of transforming attachment. And he would always talk about Tara. And Lama, we'd always joke that Lama was Tara, And I remember one time when I was working with Wisdom, we did a book and we had a picture of a female deity on Lama's teaching. And he said, you people think I'm female. They don't have F in Tibetan. You people think I'm female, he said. Because we all love to think that Lama was Tara, Because he was a reincarnation of a Tibetan abbess, the last life. Of course, Tibetans being the way they are, these patriarchs, they didn't bother recognising him, because he was being a reincarnation of a girl. But anyway, whatever. So I think Tara's great. And of course, there are different aspects of Tara. You've been doing 21 Taras, have you, Miffy?
We have, and we've been going through the Surya Gupta lineage, with the different Taras with all their different arms and implements and things.
Amazing. She knows more than I do. I haven't got a clue about all that. Miffy's educated. Miffy sits there all day with Eddie. Where's Eddie? Eddie, show me your face. Can I see Eddie?
I'm not sure if he's actually online, but
his name's there. Never mind. Miffy and Eddie just sit there all day and all night, studying and practicing Dharma and organising the centre. Then she plops upstairs and then runs all the courses. Then she goes once a week with her little lady's tiger skin shopping bag and goes to the mall and does the shopping and comes back. That's Eddie and Miffy's life. And she's known the Lama since she's a wee girl. She used to bounce in Lama Yeshe's lap when she was 9, when she was blonde. She's actually blonde under that pink. Maybe she's grey now, I don't know. Miffy and I have known each other since she was... How old were you when we met? 13, wasn't it? 12?
No, younger.
What was
like
it?
7 or 8.
Oh, little one. Were you really little when I met you? Wow.
I was really little. I was way littler than you.
Oh, gosh.
And you still had long hair.
Oh, that's right. Did I? That's interesting. Down to my bum.
Yes.
That's right. I know. Anyway, there's Miffy now. She's 6 feet tall.
And I looked up to you.
You probably did. Now I have to look up at Miffy. She's 6 foot tall. And I stopped at 5 feet. So go on. What else do you want to know? What else should we talk about?
So, you said about what the different aspects of the Buddha.
Yes,
so when we pray, how do we formulate that prayer?
Okay, let's analyse what a prayer means. We have all these. You see, our problem is that this language of religion is coming from our creative religion views, and I'm not complaining. I love being a Catholic. I was in love with God, but it's really important if we think we're Buddhists and we like Buddhism, we've got to spell this out to ourselves because we misinterpret, we misconstrue the language. So we have an assumption that prayer is to a creator. But we all know Buddha doesn't assert a creator. There's no such concept. He says we don't need creating babies. We create ourselves. We do fine creating our own mess and creating our happiness. And as His Holiness says, karma is like self-creation, because our mind is beginningless and endless. And whatever we think and do and say produces who we become. So what prayer is really simple. You know, if Miffy's a doctor and I'm sick, I've got to come to Miffy and say, please, Miffy, will you help me? Well, that's a prayer. And so it's not just sort of begging her and I'll just sit there like an idiot. She'll give me medicine and I will take it and I'll fix myself. So it's dependent arising. We rely upon doctors and friends and people. It's dependent arising. Well, a Buddha is a person. You've got to remember, it's not just some mystical idea in the sky. It's real beings who become real Buddhas who have incredible power. If you start to listen to Lama Zopa giving you some of the qualities you'd have when you're a Buddha, you'd be boggled, you know. But we've got to realize it's real. That's what Buddha's saying. Don't just believe in it blindly, but take that as your view. So all these countless Buddhas exist, and all their job is they've worked for eons based on compassion to have the power and the ability to be of benefit to sentient beings. So they've got the capability to benefit anybody, but it's dependent on us. You know, Miffy, if she's the perfect doctor, she's got the capability of healing anybody on the planet. But we've got to come to Miffy, we've got to be open to Miffy, we've got to not mind that she's got pink hair, we've got to know that she's a good doctor, and it's dependent upon that. So the more I ask Miffy to help me, the more I trust Miffy, the more Miffy is enabled to help me. It's a dependent arising. The Buddhas are the same. So we've got to connect with the Buddhas and want to be around the Buddhas and want to become a Buddha. So we request and pray and aspire. It's very humble. And I mean, that's what devotion is. You know, devotion, think about it. It's a practical view. I mean, in the text, we know they talk in this very medieval way about guru devotion. But it's so simple. We know ourselves, whether you're learning music or cake making, you've got to have confidence in the person who's showing you. You've got to trust them. You've got to and that means your heart is open. If my mummy, when she first taught me how to make a cake, if I'm open to her knowledge, my heart is wide open. That means devotion. That means I'll hear easily her knowledge. And when I say, please, mummy, show me how to make a cake, then it'll all work beautifully. That's what prayer is. That's what the Buddhas are. So we've got to connect with the Buddhas. So we want to become like them. So it's really simple, really, but it means open heart. It means devotion. And I mean, you know, we've got a head. We're very good with our heads, but if your heart's not open, the knowledge is frozen and it stays stuck in your head. But devotion opens your heart. That's, for me, the main benefit of a teacher, the main benefit of these Buddhas, you know, is the devotion is an open heart. It means humility, but based on intelligence, not on stupidity. Pabonka says, check your guru very carefully, which means check the Buddhas, because you're going to end up like them. You know, so really use your noggin, be intelligent, and then once you've connected and checked, then you open your heart, and everything can flow into your heart then. That's the meaning. That's the point of prayer. It's the first step in, you know, doing, I mean, please, you visualize Tara, you imagine Tara as your Lama. Now, this is another interesting point. People often say, well, who is Tara? There's all these lovely stories about how she came out of the eye, the tears of Chen Raising, all these nice stories. But they're very lovely, but, you know, but let's just look at the meaning. Actually, it's very interesting. Okay. Remember the Buddha? Unmanifest, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-pervasive consciousness. You can't see it. You can't taste it or touch it or smell it. But it's there, existing. But what good is it to us? We need those Buddhas to manifest in bodies, like I just said, right? Now, think of this. You do a drawing, you're trying to imagine being a tennis player. So you do a drawing, wouldn't you? You can think about what tennis players are, but you have to embody a tennis player. You have to embody tennis knowledge. So what you do is you do a drawing, a perfect drawing of a perfect tennis player. You know, this certain kind of body with the muscles this way and the hands that way. Everything will be a perfect, idealized vision of a tennis player, because you've got to see it in real terms. Now, who is that tennis player? There's no name, there's no face on, there's no personality, there's no person there. So you put your teacher's face there. So if you want Federer, if you want Serena, you put their face. So then that idealized view, that being is your guru. So with Tara, she's got this cute face, you know. You put your teacher's face there. Lama Zopa, the key teaching they talk about, and this is the logic of it, to see the guru as the Buddha, to see the Buddha as the guru, it's not some kind of fearful thing, it's logic. That idealized picture of an idealized tennis player is just conceptual until you put a real person's face on it. Then they become real. So, you know, in Dharamsala, there's a small Gompa there. When Lama Yeshe first started doing courses at Kopan, and after the first Lamrim course, his next step for his students was to do a 3-month Vajrasattva retreat. So you take initiation to Vajrasattva, and you traipse off to Dharamsala, and you do a 3-month retreat during the rainy season, you know. And so they've now got a Gompa there, especially for the Vajrasattva retreats, because continuing to go non-stop since 71. And he got the local sculptor to draw to make a life-size statue of Vajrasattva with Lama Yeshe's face. And there's Lama Yeshe. There's this gorgeous Vajrasattva, Lama Yeshe, a monk in union with his consort. It's completely divine, because Lama Zopa is trying so hard to get us to realize that the reality, not just some fantasy, that the Buddha is the guru. You put the guru's face on that Buddha, and then it becomes real for you. Then you become, it's not just some abstract idea of a green lady flying in the sky. It's your Lama manifesting in this Sambhogakaya form for your benefit. That's when it's very powerful, and it's very logical if you think about it. They don't talk about it in such simple terms in the text. They make it all kind of abstract. It's okay. But I can't talk about guru devotion any other way but this, I can't give all the 9 things and the 7 thises and what will happen if you don't do it and all the hell realms and all the blah stuff. They're very fundamentalist, these Tibetans. We've got to talk about it in a simple way. But then it's logical to us. Are we communicating, Miffy?
We are communicating. So when we pray, often it's like when things have gotten quite extreme, and
yes,
often disaster.
That's right.
And then kind of like pleading for help.
That's right. It's ridiculous. Way too late. That's our trouble in the West, isn't it? So that's what we think of meditation. We think of it as an alternative to a pill. If you're all happy and lovely, you think, you say, someone who says you should meditate, what for? I'm happy. We don't realise we've got the suffering of change. We haven't realised enough about our minds. We wait till the wheels fall off, and then we rush off to the doctor having a panic attack. And even now, if you go to your therapist and you say, I got a bit annoyed today, they tell you to shut up and go home. Wait till you want to kill your boyfriend before you come back. That's how idiotic we are in the West. But Buddha's view is much more subtle, more nuanced, We've got to learn to see our minds before the wheels fall off. Then you're ready for the wheels to fall off. That's our problem. We go when we're desperate because we're stupid. But we've got to know our minds well right now, and then you get ready, and then you will never have the wheels fall off because you've got all the tools to handle yourself. That's the real skill that Buddhism gives us. It's very brilliant. But often we do need to get the wake-up call, don't we? That's what happens, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, the whole world, Venerable, with COVID, it's been the biggest wake-up call,
exactly.
hasn't it? Are we ready, or how much are we
exactly
a heartfelt practitioner, not just in the head?
No, that's so true, Miffy. I swear, it's so really true. That's why people all go crazy, because we haven't noticed the wheels have been falling off for ages, but we don't notice it until they fall off because we're so stupid. That's our trouble. And that's why we've got to become our own therapists, like Lama Yes says. We've got to know our minds well and see even the day-to-day when you've got your wits about you, when the troubles haven't started yet, then you start to look into your mind. That's the real skill that Buddha gives us, this ability to see the mind at ever more subtle levels. That's the real benefit of practice. And then when the wheels do fall off, you're ready for it. You can handle it. When you get COVID-19, when the boyfriend leaves you or whatever, then you're able to do it. It's so sensible, But our trouble is because of so much attachment. We're such junkies. When attachment's getting what it wants and we call it happiness, we kind of get blinded by it and forget that there are still problems, We've got to just be intelligent. That's why it's so good to have a disciplined practice, isn't it? Morning and night. Miffy, come on, you're good at asking questions. Every class I do, she's always the first person to ask questions because she anticipates everybody else's. She's great.
Pearlie's just reminded me that it was actually you, Venerable Robina, who led us in our very first all-night Tara Puja.
Oh, was it? When was that?
Well, Pearlie says it's way back when we were 19 years old, which is like over 30 years ago now.
Oh my God, that would be right. That was when Miffy and Pearlie were... Pearlie was a singer, and she had this band. What was the band's name? What was that band she had?
The band was called Madam Bones Brothel.
That's right, Madam Bones Brothel. So I remember Miffy and Pearlie took me to a club. I hadn't been in a club in 20, 30 years. And I'm this little short person. They're these 6 foot tall girls, big looking like Amazons. And this club is all dark. I remember this boy tried to hit on me. I was his old nun. Because he couldn't see me in the light, So Miffy and Pearlie were my protectors.
And it gave us a great big thrill being your protector actually on either side. And actually I also, like the all-night Tara Puja, I think I remember you leading one at Chenrezig Institute and making us circumambulate the Gompa and going really, really fast.
Oh, that'd be right. Keep us awake. Now that's true because I was the SPC in 87 and 88 in Chenrezig. That's right, when Sakya Trinzen came. That's right, I was the SPC. the
That's
spiritual
right.
program coordinator.
Pearlie's remembered it all.
What else? Come on.
So there is a question here from a lady called Hope. How do we overcome the abusive narcissistic personality types?
Well,
So,
darling,
you know,
well, first of all, if you're a Buddhist, use Buddhist analysis. It's called a person with lots of attachment, hungry, with emotional hunger to get what they want, and because of this, they put themselves first. Guess what? Join the universe, folks. But maybe some people are a bit more extreme than others. So how you handle them is by knowing about your own narcissism, your own attachment, your own craving to be seen, your own craving to be heard, your own craving to be happy. Join the universe. If we can't see that in ourselves, we've got big trouble. This is why we've got to do the wisdom wing before the compassion wing, because the only way to handle it is with compassion, and it can be tough compassion. But so there's really, I find this so helpful. There are two. If we look at the wisdom wing and the compassion wing, a bird needs two wings. It's a great way of describing all of Buddha's practices, okay? So the wisdom wing is all the nuts and bolts of what we've got to do on ourselves, like in the Lam Rim, it's the junior school and high school, it's the lowest and middle scope. And it's all the work we've got to do on ourselves, abide by the laws of karma, control our body and speech, go into the middle one, learn to become our own therapist, know our minds, intimately understand our own attachment, our own anger, our own jealousy, our own anxiety, using Buddha's model. You can use Jung if you like, but we're talking Buddha here. Then you start to realize, oh my God, look at me, my crazy mind. This is why I'm suffering. I'm sick of suffering. You've got to get really a kind of compassion for yourself. Now you're able to look outside and go, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. So you can't have that level of understanding until you know your own mind first. This is why, as His Holiness says, compassion is not enough. You've got to have wisdom. And wisdom is what comes when you get rid of some of your own rubbish. You start to see yourself, and therefore you can see others. So from this perspective, there's two main ways to practice in daily life. It's quite simple. If you're going to do the wisdom wing, which is help your own self become clearer, when you look at a narcissistic person, when you look at Mr. Trump or whoever it is you don't like out there, the usual one we do is we criticize. Look at that evil person. Look at that narcissistic person. Look at that Mr. Trump, how he lies. We go all very judgmental. That's fine, but it's not helpful. So what you got to do, the wisdom wing, is you look outside and you go, there's a person who's narcissistic. There's a self-centered person. There's a liar. There's a thief. There's a murderer. There's a terrorist. And you go, thank you. There's two things you can say. Thank you for showing me how not to be. And guess what? I recognize that. If you understand Buddha's view of the mind, there's not a single delusion on this universe that you haven't got. Maybe they've got worse, that's all. You may be not a pedophile, but you've got attachment. You may be not a terrorist, but you get angry. You kick the dog or something. So everybody out there, from the wisdom wing point of view, is like a workshop for you to see your own mind. You bring it back to yourself. If you can't do that, you can't do the compassion wing, because then the compassion wing is, oh my God, look at this poor person suffering. And you might have to walk away. You might have to say, I'm sorry, excuse me, be quiet. You might have to use tough love, but you understand why the person is that way, because you understand your own mind. That's how you practice Dharma every second. Is a short, long answer. Does it make sense? Who asked that?
That was a lady called Hope. And
what do you think, Hope?
Thank you.
She thinks it's beautiful. Okay, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
We just got to remember, Hope, that's all. Go on.
So then what happens, Venerable, if we get really despondent or overwhelmed? Like when we see others suffering, it can make us...
Absolutely. And it's the same, it's easy to talk. It's the same reason, the same answer for Hope's. Because if we can't have, if we're Buddhists, no one says we have to be, but if we are, we've got this whole model that describes what suffering is, that describes the causes. So in the beginning stages, as the Four Noble Truths, you're not applying it to the world yet, you're applying it to yourself. You've got to know yourself first. It's sort of like if you are overweight and unhealthy because you're eating bad food, but you've never heard of nutrition. How can you rush around helping other people who've got sad problems with overweight and bad nutrition if you don't know how to do it yourself? You've got to learn it about yourself first. Then you've got the basis for going, oh my God, I understand why there's all this suffering out there, because they're suffering for the same reason as me. And you don't lose hope. You have more courage. And that's when bodhicitta kicks in. You might know how to help at the moment, but you know the reasons why they're suffering. That's the crucial one of the first stages of practice. And then you can go, I can't help now, but I'm going to continue working on myself. I'm going to continue becoming Tara, continue to becoming a Buddha, then I'm qualified to help others. In fact, for bodhisattvas, seeing suffering gives them courage. It doesn't despair them. The reason we despair is because we don't know why they're suffering. And that's why we've got to do the wisdom wing first. I can't stress this enough. This is the whole Buddha's view. Buddha's view is like an entire world view of the universe. It's like a coherent world view. You might think it's that, but that's what it is. So first you learn about your own suffering, your own delusions, your own dramas. You know why you are suffering, and then now you know why other people are, and then from this you get courage. Still, you've got to be reasonable. You can't, you don't expect that overnight, but that's the logic, And it's not easy. So when you are overwhelmed, you do what you can. You have good friends. You support yourself. Maybe you keep away. Maybe you don't read the newspapers. Maybe you don't read your iPad every day because it freaks you out. You've got to know where you're at and what you can handle. But keep on your own work. Have support. Have your good friends to support you. That's what Sangha means, And then we get braver and braver as we keep working on the Bodhisattva path. You get the incredible courage of the Bodhisattvas, who whenever they see suffering, it gives them more courage to never give up, We've got to cultivate that.
So then, Venerable, how can we use something like grief on the path? That we might be trying to deal with our attachment and we lose someone close to us and we're genuinely sad about it.
Of course we are.
So how do we kind of not press it down but use it?
No, totally. That means we've got to understand Buddhist psychology. We've got to understand the Buddhist model of the mind, So that means we have to understand. I don't think in Buddhist psychology you'll find an equivalent word to grief. But if we analyse what we mean by grief, there's it's a composite. There's a bunch of different things in there. One is compassion. There's no question. Like His Holiness, when he talked about his mummy dying, he was in tears. But for him, there'd be no attachment, no depression, no fears, because he's completely enlightened. But he's got compassion, so there are tears. So for us, there's compassion. There's just because you've got a close connection with that person. But then also there's attachment. Why we suffer is because of attachment, because we just lost what attachment wants, which is the beloved person, and that's how we are. So that the suffering part doesn't come from compassion. The suffering doesn't come from love. The suffering comes from attachment and fear and aversion and the depression. They're the delusions. So when we understand the components of the grief, we've got to recognize what we feel. Be brokenhearted. Be on the ground weeping in sadness. But when you're using Buddhist psychology, you learn to unpack your mind and know the bits in there. And then you realize impermanence and you understand about attachment. And then you pick yourself up and you're able to move forward. But if there's so much attachment, and people often when their beloved dies, they're afraid of letting go of the suffering because they think it's cheating on the person. So they're almost afraid to be happy again. That's just foolish, Once we realize impermanence, then death is not nearly as much suffering for us. Because everybody will die. That's why we have to realize our own impermanence, So all of the part of the practice is really helping us get strong. So go through the process. Don't pretend. Break your heart. Be in tears. But move through it, How much time did we got? How much time did we have?
Well, we've got at least half an hour, Venerable. So
okay,
it's
good,
okay.
That's fine. Okay.
So when say an animal, one of our pets, someone that we've shared our household with and has cheered us up no end.
Yes.
When they die, do they get? This is also a question from someone. Do they get stuck in an animal realm? Do they show up as spirit?
I understand. Well, as we know, Buddha's got all these different views, different types of rebirth, and this is why Lama Zopa's book, I don't know if you guys have courses on that, maybe you should do one, or you have done in the past, but Lama Zopa, the paperback version of this book of Rinpoche's that's just come out last year from Wisdom, I happened to edit it, it's called How to Face Death Without Fear, and it's this entire handbook on exactly what death is, all the understanding, the technical things, and all these different practices to do at the different stages to help our loved ones, including our pets, including the mouse, including the bird. So this is why Lama Zopa says that if you're going to help anybody in this life, the time they need you most is literally at the time of death. And it's described in great detail, this whole technical process of what death is. But the crucial point about death, why it's so important for our little pussycat as well, is that at the time of death, certain things occur that would trigger the karmic seeds, because everything we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind. We're carrying around these millions of karmic seeds in our bank vaults. And the one that will determine our next life, including for the pussycat, will be the one that is triggered soon before you stop breathing. So it's in that period for your little pussycat. Don't go off to the vet and have it killed and call it putting it down and be all holy. No, let it look after the little pussy, love the pussy, make it happy, make it comfortable, secure, have it listening to prayers all the time, mantras, because even just the sound of a mantra leaves an imprint in its mind. So the pussy is peaceful, you're singing mantras to it, or it's hearing prayers, you can almost guarantee it'll die with a happy mind, and that will trigger a virtuous karmic seed, and it'll get a nice human family, and it'll become a Buddhist and meet the Dalai Lama and get enlightened. That's what you want for your pussycat and your grandma. The essence of it.
And what happens if it goes wrong?
Well, yes. That's life. That's why that's why it's such an important time to help somebody, help them navigate this time, because fear is very strong at the time of death, including for animals. And fear can only trigger negative states. So we just have to help them navigate this process, help them be peaceful, virtuous, and calm. And then a virtuous karmic seed can be triggered. So special. And not be afraid of their suffering. Not be afraid, think, I must kill the cat. No, just allow it to go through this process. Every second of its suffering is purification. But it trusts you. Your animals trust you and love you. You give enormous support to them. And that's what, your grandma needs that. Everybody needs that so badly, and that gives them so much courage, having you nearby to hold their hand, metaphorically, it's so important.
Then if you think about your previous people who've died where they had a bad death, for instance,
yes.
a fearful death, is there something we can do for them now?
Yes, Lama Zopa is amazing. This book has got 2/3 of this book are all the practices. They're numbered from 1 to 87. There's so many practices. And he talks about, first of all, you make sure that a virtuous karmic seed is triggered before they stop breathing. But if you miss the boat there are practices you can do. Then there are practices you can do while they're in the bardo to help them change the karma. Then there are practices you can do even after they've left the body. There's so many things you can do to help. Even a person now who's died before, you can do practices that can help shift the like, for example, there's a practice called Jangwa, where even once your loved one is dead or your cat's dead and you've got their ashes and you get them blessed. But this special practice called Jangwa, which invokes the energy of all the Buddhas into the ashes, that can even help the karma of your animal or your grandma change. Even then. Right. There's so many, Rinpoche is amazing in this way. There's so many things we can do. So optimistic, Mm-hmm.
And Venerable, I also wanted to ask you about doubt and faith, because even like doing a Tara Puja, I know there's quite a few people that feel like vaguely embarrassed doing a ritual.
I know, of course we are, because we have this idea of religion in the sky, cross your fingers and hope for the best. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we can't make it change overnight. But that's why we've got to use our noggins and use our logic to try and unpack what is a Buddha, what is Tara, what is this stuff. Of course, it's all a working hypothesis until you've realised it, but that should give us confidence. But we have a big problem. We think, well, I can't see it, I can't prove it, therefore I'm always going to be living in doubt. We go mad like that. It's sort of like you've never heard of 1 + 1 is 2 before. And so you go on for years. I've been hearing 1 + 1 is 2, I've got faith in it. And then one day you go, oh no, I haven't got faith in it, because you've never bothered to work it out. Go to your teacher and ask her to prove it to you. Then you'll have confidence, even theoretically. You've got to go, doubt is good because it's a question, but you've got to keep moving through the doubt and look at the options and come up with a conclusion. And then you take that as your working hypothesis. You have confidence in it, even theoretically. That's a good start. Mm-hmm. And you go one step at a time, You can't prove everything overnight, but eventually Buddha would say you can. Because the very fact in Buddhism, everything that's said in Buddhism, Tsongkhapa says this, in his beautiful poetic text called Hymns of Experience. He says everything is to be taken as sound advice, because there's no contradiction between scripture and practice. What that means is, in a cookbook, you think about it, every word in that cookbook has to lead you to make a cake. It's got to be logical. If there's any word in that book that doesn't help you make a cake, chuck the book out. So if there's any word in the teachings that is not something you can finally put into practice, it's a load of rubbish. So you've got to be very clear and very logical and take this hypothesis that what we're talking here in Buddhism is not just something that something says on high from above, but is coming from the experience of a person called the Buddha, and anybody who's practiced since then. Is experiential. It might seem mystical to us, but so is E = MC² mystical until you've learned it. And you don't leave it at the level of I believe in karma. You don't say I believe in E = MC². You don't say I believe in botany. You learn it, and that gives you confidence in it, one step at a time. That's up to us to engage in it, We love to leave religion in the sky and go around shopping. Oh, I like this one. I don't like that one. I believe in reincarnation. I don't believe in that one. That's just superstition. It's just intellectual laziness. I don't know. Does my blunt approach help?
Yeah. So if there's someone that really wants to have faith in the Dharma, but they're ridden with doubts, like all the time doubting, or maybe it's not true, or maybe there was
I know, but that's what I just answered just before. Didn't it help what I just said? No, it didn't come clear what I said.
Well, I am a little bleary, I've got to admit, Venerable.
So if you listen, let's just keep it. I understand. This is we've all got different problems, Some of us have doubt. I often say, people say to you, are you sure? And I'll say, even if I'm wrong, I'm sure. So I should have a bit of doubt. I'm a bit arrogant. So other people have anger. I've got lots of that one. Other people have attachment. We've all got our own problem. But doubt is a good one because it's a very equal mind. And you say, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. Now, this is my example of 1 + 1 is 2. You've heard that 1 + 1 is 2, but let's say you've never studied it. So you can never be certain, can you? You can never be certain. So you don't live there. Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. You've got to go into it. This is the point, Miffy. This is the piece of advice. You hear something. Or what about reincarnation? You've got to read about it and see what Buddha says. Not maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I believe it and I don't. You've got to, well, what does Buddha say? He says the mind is not physical. You've got to learn that first. Take it as your hypothesis. You can't prove it yet. If the mind is not physical, and if it's beginningless and endless, and if there's no creator, well, it follows logically this comes from that, which goes to that, which leads to this. So it's only one step at a time that you can take it. Don't try to swallow it all whole all at once. Leave it on the back burner. Take what does work for you and go one step at a time. That's the big thing. We'll try to prove it all at once and we go crazy. You can't. In other words, to prove E = mc squared, you've got to start with 1 + 1 is 2. Prove that first and leave the E = m squared on the back burner and you'll get there eventually. It's a process. It's dependent arising, one step at a time. Be more humble about it. Not trying to get it all perfect first. That's just anxiety. You have a panic attack if you do that. Does that help a bit?
Yes, that does.
Thank
Helps
you.
enormously.
Okay. What else?
I'm thinking of all my friends who are ridden with doubts and anxieties, and now I've got something to help.
Good, okay. All right. So there's Michelle. Michelle's in Amsterdam. Look, there's Michelle in Amsterdam.
So
And
Anisha,
there's Jamie and Susie in England. There's Rosemary. Sorry, keep going. I'm looking at all these people. Go on.
so Anisha in Dharamsala says, Venerable, you're so wonderful explaining the traditional Buddhist teachings in a clear, practical way,
Yeah,
so
good.
that we can understand without confusion.
Yeah.
So how do we develop this kind of analytical wisdom so we can apply the teachings in our daily life?
I know.
In a real
Well, yeah.
way?
We've got the wisdom side and the compassion side. We've got to do both. So wisdom on its own is no good. So, with a clever mouth like I've got, I can be a bit rough sometimes and hurt people. It's not cool. But then some people have got a soft heart, but a bit kind of wishy-washy. So you've got to kind of, the kind, loving, open, compassionate people have got to keep doing on that. Because, see, both wings help each other. So for me, to be more humble and more patient and more kind to people can enhance my wisdom. And then people who are sort of more compassion side, by being more clear and analytical, can help, can then you strengthen your love and compassion. So each has to do the other. We've got to know where we're all at and know the kind of minds we've got. And then we do what's appropriate. So some of us need to do lots of purification, some to do lots of more compassion meditation, some do lots of sort of manjushri. I mean, for example, if you want more wisdom, just do manjushri. It's a brilliant practice. Do the mantra, do this blessing the speech. Manjushri, manju, gentle voice. He's the Buddha of wisdom, and it's the wisdom not just of the mind, but the wisdom of speech. So, for example, if you want more wisdom, shut your mouth, zip your lip. Don't say stuff that you don't. Every time we often have weak mouths and we go around the world just vomiting out whatever we feel, then you're going to get no wisdom because you're not following wisdom. You're just saying what you think is true. You're saying things just to make people, just to be, just to sort of show the answer. Then you're lessening your wisdom. So be silent, and if you don't know the answer, be quiet. That strengthens your wisdom because you begin to get clear what you're thinking. So by doing Manjushri mantra and Manjushri meditation, that absolutely helps your wisdom. It's marvelous. Like do the wonderful mantra of Manjushri, Omarapasana D, and you say that, and that strengthens your wisdom. So there's lots of techniques in there. There's a whole medicine cabinet of techniques, a toolkit of techniques, all the different kinds of practices. And so the more we know our own mind, what we need, we will be able to do those particular practices, Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What else?
What else?
So we're not doing any Tara. This is the break between Tara, is it?
Well, I was just about to ask you about when did Tara help you?
When?
Yes, like...
Well, my first contact with Tara was when I met Lama Yeshe. I'll tell you, okay. At that point, I'd been in kind of all my political activity, and at that point then, the final stages of my political activity was a radical lesbian separatist feminist. I was a serious feminist, and I bumped into Lama at Chenrezig in Rinpoche. It was 1976 June, when they just built the new Gompa, and you Queenslanders think you live in the bloody tropics and you think it's hot all the time. Well, all I know is June in the winter with these gales of wind coming through this Gompa with no louvers. There were no louver windows. So you freeze for one whole month of this ridiculous course. Anyway, I sat there every time with Lama Zopa. And then the second course, I had a choice between doing a Tara retreat and doing a Chenrezig retreat with Lama. Well, I loved Tara because I was a feminist. And I used to think people told me that Lama was Tara, and I liked that idea a lot. And I really liked Tara even then. But I have to say, when I did decide to do the retreat, I decided I'd do the retreat with Lama, so I let the Tara people go away. But what I did was, because I didn't like the idea of visualizing Chenrezig because he was a boy, so I visualized him like a girl, because I was a feminist. I didn't want boys, so I visualized Chenrezig like Tara, you know. So I snuck in Tara on top of Chenrezig. So all the visualizations of Chenrezig, I visualized this girl with a nice chest, you know. That was when Tara helped me, I think. I'm serious. Go on. What else? Why don't we do a little I don't know what you've been doing. Why don't we do a wee meditation on Tara? I've got 10 minutes left, 15 minutes left. Why don't we do that? Should we do that?
Let's do that.
A little simple one. A really simple one, okay? Okay, just relax. Just be normal. Don't get all fancy because you're going to meditate. Just maybe keep your body upright. Maybe you close your eyes so you don't get distracted. And just imagine, visualization just means creative imagination. And we've got good visualization. When you're in love with somebody, you've got perfect, single-pointed concentration on the loved one. So we all know how to visualize and we all know how to concentrate. So we visualize in front of us the embodiment of all the Buddha's qualities, but showing the aspect of this gorgeous female in this beautiful bodhisattva aspect. You know, we all know she looks like the statue at Chenrezig, you know. She's sitting with a cross-legged, with her left leg out, crossed in on a multicolored lotus. And there's a moon disc and a sun disc on the lotus. Just imagine there's like two flat cushions. And then her right leg is resting on another little multicolored lotus, and she's in this action pose, ready to hop up to help others. She's not in the meditative. Her left leg is drawn in like that. So her face, start with her face, this blissful, she's just radiantly beautiful, you know. And if you've got a Lama, if you've got a spiritual teacher, you just imagine as their mind, dressing up as Tara for your benefit, showing you what you can become, you know, such love and compassion. Try and imagine the level of love and compassion of the Buddha. It's inconceivable to us. And she's got very blissful, very beautiful, sweet red mouth, eyes looking at you so kindly. She's in the sky in front of you. And she's in the bodhisattva style. Like her hair is partially held up in a top knot. And you can imagine all her hair down her back, super clear. And she's got this lovely five-pointed kind of tiara crown on her head. Everything has meaning, you know. And then she's dressed in this body and decorated like in the bodhisattva style, coming from the Indian style. Ears and upper arms and wrists and ankles decorated beautifully, her throat. And the top part, she's just got this kind of little silken shawl, but basically you can see her gorgeous breasts. She's so beautiful. Everything's radiant, beautiful, vibrant. And her right hand is on her knee, on her right knee, and the palms are up in this mudra or gesture of kind of giving, very generous, very giving. And she's holding, in her thumb and ring finger, she's holding the stem of a blue upala lotus flower that blooms at her right ear. And her left hand is at her heart, in the fingers pointing up in this mudra of the three jewels or enlightenment, I always forget. And she's also holding this between her thumb and ring finger, and the stem of another blue upala flower that blooms at her left ear. And everything's like made of light, not substantial, it's blissful, radiant, imagine. And it's the embodiment. She is the personification of all the qualities of the Buddha, but the aspect she shows is power, confidence, action, success, get things done, cut through the obstacles. She's action energy, you know. We need this badly. And she's showing us, like a mirror image, showing us our own potential. So then the lower part, she's got this kind of silken, multicolored silken, kind of looks like trousers, really silken. Everything's light and radiant. So there she is, the embodiment of all these qualities that we want to cultivate. She's the embodiment, she's the manifestation of our own Lama's mind, the Lama, our favorite teacher, you know. So now we just imagine, just very short, very brief, imagine, we'll do it short, there's not much time, that she sends, so compassionately, she sends white light, laser beams of white light from her brow that enter our brow and fill us completely and instantly eradicate first all the pain and misery and heaviness of these bodies of ours, these bags of bones we have to lug around, Totally alleviates all the suffering, all the pain. But crucially also, it purifies all the karmic imprints in our mind of all the harm we've ever done since beginningless time with our bodies, instantly eradicated. Imagine, full of this blissful white light. So marvelous. She keeps sending the white light. And this time what it does is now all the delusions are gone, all the karmic seeds are gone, all the suffering is gone. And now we imagine we're completely full of all the marvelous potential to use our body to only be of benefit. Can you even imagine that? Even just this body, whoever sees us, hears us, talks to us, touches us, smells us, tastes us, our body can only benefit them. Full of this marvelous potential, our own potential. Not only that, the potential when we are a Buddha to manifest effortlessly in countless bodies throughout all the universe to be of benefit to all sentient beings. That's our potential. That's the action of a Buddha. Full of this radiant white light, this marvelous potential. And now Lama Chenrezig so compassionately sends from her throat radiant laser beams of red light that enter our throat and instantly fill us. This time purifying all the speech, all the nonsense. I mean, this is the human one. We mightn't go around raping and killing too many people, but we love our speech. These clever concepts coming out of our mouth as these sounds, And look at the harm we do to others. The speech that isn't true. And even if we're not speaking consciously, the speaking lies, but look at all the speculation. We think we know what we're talking about and we don't. Confuse people, All the harsh speech. All the rabbiting on about nothing speech. And all the stuff behind backs. We love to criticize behind backs. That's our favourite. All this harmful sounds, that not to mention the harm it does to others. Look what it does to our own mind. Look what it does to our wisdom. Confuses us. We confuse ourselves every second. Mess our own minds up. Make a mess of ourselves. But look at the harm it does to others. So imagine all of this and all the karmic imprints of anything we've ever done with our speech to harm others. Completely eradicated. Completely purified. This blissful white light filling us. Red light. Full of this red radiant light. So purifying. Again, Lama Chenrezig Tara so compassionately sends the red light, this time filling us with our potential. This is the point, Buddha's brilliant view is that all these delusions, all this nonsense that looms so large in our lives is not at the core of our being. This is Buddha's brilliant finding. It should give us so much confidence. That it's eradicated, all this nonsense of our speech and all the causes of the rubbish from the past, gone, eradicated. So now the red light fills us with our marvelous potential. And this is the main gift of the Buddha. It's called the power of speech. But Buddha can look at you for 47 years, but you can't learn anything until he opens his mouth, until that Tara opens her mouth and gives advice. That's the power of speech. So can we imagine now being full of such marvelous power of speech, such that whatever we say, whatever sound we utter, even our laugh, even good morning, will benefit whoever hears it. Can you imagine this? And we need our speech in daily life. We don't want people to not believe us. We don't want people not to pay attention to us. We need the power of speech to imagine this, and whatever we want will be achieved. So full of this radiant red light, this marvellous potential to be a benefit to whoever hears us with our sounds out of our mouth. And now Lama Tara so kindly, this time from the center of her heart chakra, radiant blue beams of light, laser light, like the sky, enter our heart, instantly fill us. And now what happens? Well, now it eradicates the root of all the problem, our ridiculous mind, our ridiculous delusions, the ego grasping that believes in the separate me in the first place, then the desperate emotional hunger of attachment to get what that fantasy me wants, then the aversion and the panic attack and the anger and the depression and the despair when we don't get what we want, and all the other 3,997 delusions that Buddha has mapped out. All these are eradicated. Because why? Because they're not at the core of our being. Because they're fantasies, they're elaborations, they're made up nonsense. Therefore, they have no basis in reality, and so they can be removed. This is very encouraging, full of this blissful blue light, free of the causes of suffering. How incredible. All the attachment, anger, depression, anxiety, jealousy, low self-esteem, pride, arrogance, you name it, gone like a dream, full of this blissful blue light. So now the blue light comes again from Lama Tara. So kind. This time what are we going to fill up with? Our virtues, our wisdom. This stuff is at the core of our being. This is who we really are. This is our Tara nature. We have to remember this. It's so encouraging to know this. This is sitting there quietly now. We've got to wake it up. So now full of wisdom that sees things as they are. Full of compassion, full of kindness, love, and full of fearlessness. Tara is the liberator from fears. When delusions are gone, fear has gone. We are now courageous, brave, loving, kind, wise. Can you imagine? This is our true nature. Full of this blissful blue light. So now Lama Chenrezig, there's still more work to do. We've achieved liberation. We're already blissful, but there's more we can do. We enter into the compassion wing now. We get bodhicitta, and now we get more wisdom, and now we remove even the subtlest imprints of all the delusions, and we achieve omniscience. We achieve Buddhahood. We become Tara. This is like kind of like a second rinse. And so Tara sends the three together, white to the brow, red to the throat, blue to the heart, and removes even the subtlest imprints, the obstacles to omniscience. So now we become Tara. Amazing. Full of these three lights together.